Is it just me, or have we got a government that's giving us stuff that we never really asked for, which is a bit odd? You know, I mean, I've been sitting here sort of confused a lot of the time, laughing at the nonsense the government have been doing in this country and across the world. Other governments seem to do the same. You know, the things like the introduction of the ID, the digital ID, as if that's going to be great for us, a consultation in which nobody's had a chance really to put their thoughts, and if they don't want it, get rid of it. The constant threat of this CBDCs, the central bank digital currency, the concept that they want to get rid of cash. They want to know about every transaction. This sort of weird big brotherness of cameras everywhere spying on us, and these 15-minute cities, the ULEZ thing, people clearly in London, for example, don't want, but the mayor there is hell-bent on implementing something that nobody wants. It's very odd, isn't it? I mean, I understand that perhaps not everybody is protesting against it, but not everybody has gone there and said, actually, we want this. It's mad. So to me, it just seems as if the government is not a government that is there for our benefit. And yet we seem to sit here and do nothing about it. We just acquiesce, we roll our eyes, we moan to our neighbours and go, oh, look what they're doing now, blimey, you know, it's going to be a bit tough, isn't it? Oh dear. We act like little children, as if it's our parents, that the government are our parents and saying, now, look, kids, this is what's going to happen. You can't get as much pocket money as you used to. I'm afraid to say you'll have to go to bed earlier. You can't go to the toilet and when we say, and you have to do these things at certain times. And we, the people of this land, we just go, oh dear, it's not very nice, is it? But fair enough, I suppose. You know, maybe we can vote for different parents next time round. And then the next lot of parents seem to be just as bad, if not worse. I've made some notes on this observation that I want to share with you. So it's odd. We have this dictating, this tyrannical dictatorship of a government, and we do nothing about it. Take the energy bill, for instance. I mean, that's just been nodded through. I don't know whether you were consulted about it and whether you agree with any of it, that obviously we have to go towards this net zero business, that it's essential that everything is electrified so that you're not allowed to have gas anymore, or wood-burning stoves, or diesel or petrol, so that everything is electric. Well, when everything is electric and you've only got one source of power, what happens if the people who control that one source of power decide to put the price up? And there's no alternative then. Oh dear, the price of electricity's just gone up. How are we going to pay? Well, if you had an alternative, you can say, well, we'll cook on the wood-burning stove for a while, or we'll use gas because it's cheaper. No, you can't do that. And what if you're deemed to be a naughty boy and they just say, we'll turn you off the electricity? Then what are you supposed to do? Is that a way to run a country? To have your people in fear with one system? I mean, it is bonkers. And they're saying now that if you don't acquiesce, you can be locked up in prison, which is a nonsense. All for this bizarre myth of man-made global warming, in which even if it was a thing, which I personally don't think it is, it's laughable, and the experts are coming round to that opinion now, slowly and finally. More and more people are beginning to wake up and realise, actually, perhaps this is not as bad as they make out. But even if it was, here in this country, in England, Scotland and Wales, we're only contributing about 1% of the carbon that's going into the atmosphere. And not only that, the carbon is actually good for the planet because it's the gas of life. It's what makes plants grow. And by golly, we need plants to grow. But this again is, we've got to go to this net zero. The government tells us and we do nothing about it. It's mad. So, but why should we go along with their dictating, their diktats? Why should we go along with this tyrannical system? Isn't the government the people we put in there to serve us? Isn't that how it works? I'm sorry, but that's the understanding that I've had in the 60 years that I've been on this planet, that we have voted these people in to do our bidding, not to tell us what to do or to say, okay, look, these are the problems of the land, we need to do something about it, and then not consult all of us. Where have been the village hall meetings where a representative from the government has gone to the people and said, come here to the village hall, to the park, to the beaches, and have everybody gather round and say, look, this is what we're really thinking. What do you think? And so that the people of the land can actually go there and say, well, actually, do you know what? Not sure we believe in any of this. This does seem a bit too much. Really sorry, we don't want it. The idea of having surveillance cameras everywhere. Well, it's, it is for your own good. It's for your health and safety, that sort of thing. Or having some medical treatment being mandated on you or pushed on you that everybody's supposed to take. And where were the consultants with the real people, the everyday people? When did that happen? I mean, I don't think that happened. If it did, I must have been asleep. It was in the blink of an eye. I didn't see it. Why was I not invited down to the big gatherings where these were being discussed with us and our views could be put to and voted on and said, yeah, actually, do you know what? This is essential. And we all agree, massive numbers of them, 70% of the population would agree that they want to have cameras surveilling them, that they want to have digital IDs, at every opportunity, that they want to get rid of cash. When did that happen? I just don't think that actually did. I mean, as I say, maybe I was snoozing when all of those things happened in a society that we, the people, are paying. We're paying for it. We pay them to do this job of putting into place the things we want, not the things they want, not the things that they think are good for us, not unless they've consulted us and the vast majority of us have said, do you know what? That is what we want. I mean, I don't mind them thinking up and coming up with ideas and schemes and saying, look, what do you think about this? But I think it's us, the people of the land, that ought to be making the decision in our numbers and saying actually yes or no, not them going, no, this is what you're having. So what do we do about that? Why should we obey and put up with the things that they've come up with and saying, well, you're having them like it or not? They're not actually in charge. They're just administrating what we want, but they seem to have got confused. And we're letting them stay confused. That's what I don't understand. Why are we letting them remain confused? Hold on a second. No, hold on. We're the ones that are paying your bills, we're paying your wages. We're the ones that put you there. You should be working for us. It wouldn't work in a business where the people elect somebody and then they don't do what they elect. I mean, it wouldn't work. It is a barking. So what can we do? What can we do about this? Well, for one thing, we could set up an alternative government, couldn't we? I mean, why should the government have a monopoly on governing? They have their own monopolies commission to make sure things are fair. I mentioned this the other day. Well, surely we could set up another government. Now, I don't mean another party. I don't mean that. I don't mean that we set up a party. I mean, people are trying to do that, and they've done that for donkey's years, setting up another party to go against the two-party system. And where has that got us? No, I mean a completely separate type of government, not a government that tries to sort of wangle its way into that pit of vipers in the House of Commons, in the Houses of Parliament. I'm not talking about any of that nonsense. I'm saying a completely separate type of government, so that you could say, look, do you want to be run by the system that we've got, where you try and vote, and you vote for two lots of people ultimately, and they sit opposite each other, and that basically they can't get it right. I mean, we know they can't get it right because for decades now they've said, oh, if you vote for us, we'll improve the NHS. If you vote for us, we'll sort out the immigration problem. If you vote for us, we'll make sure there's better policing. If you vote for us, we'll make sure the education system works. And every 5 years, 4 to 5 years in the past, when we've had to re-vote for these people, they've said, oh no, if you vote for us, we'll do it. And you said, well, hang on a second. You're supposed to have done that, aren't you? That's what we voted you for. And decades go past, they must think we're stupid. Well, we are stupid because we keep voting them in on that same thing. They never stick to the plans that they have, and they're continually saying, if you vote for us, we'll make it better. And actually things get worse. So you could have that system if you think it's worth having. You could carry on and go, do you know what? Well, that system is really working for me. Yes, I love being penalised by all the different methods and things that they throw out. Or you could say, let's have a different type of government, a different one. And let's see what the people choose. Do they want that two-party system, or maybe a different way of running it? Now, I don't know how that might work. It could be that it's a bit like the old Saxon thing, where the people go round and they are consulted in the village halls. You know, the Saxons used to meet on the moot mounds, and the elders would be considered, you know, people who have been around for a long time, people who have lived through lots of different situations and have wisdom, and that they say, well, do you know what, when we were a lad this happened, and now we've seen changes, and we think that actually we mustn't throw the baby out with the bathwater because this worked really well, and we've progressed, yes, and it's good to sort of improve things, but often a lot of the things that we've done in the past work really well, and we've got rid of them. For example, things that don't seem to work very well now is highly processed foods. In the past, we had organic food that was more healthy, that didn't have lots of sugars and bad chemicals in it. We had smaller farms, for example. We had many more of them. We had fewer big corporations that were controlling the way we do things and setting out a system of business in which you turn out to be just a small number rather than a person. We had far more family-run businesses. We had more independence. So maybe, you know, I'm not saying that's what we actually have to have. I'm just saying that people with wisdom, the elderly people who'd seen the systems change, perhaps a government based on that is more what people would like to see. A government or an administration, if you like, who have fewer rules, perhaps. Give the people the choice between this two-party system that's got the history of actually making things worse and becoming more dictatorial, and perhaps a new system that is perhaps more people-friendly. And I'm sure there must be loads of people out there who could think of ways of doing that and have a completely different system. As I say, why has the government got the monopoly on how they run things? We're the people. We should have the monopoly on how things are run, not them. Let's go to some more of my notes here. So let's have a look here. The point is, the government that we have at the moment, as I say, is a dictatorship. We'd be better off with no government. I mean, wouldn't we? One of my contributors, Steve, I interviewed him the other day. The video's out there. Now, he's Polish. He lived during the late 1980s, during a lot of turmoil. And at one point, about a year, I'm not quite sure, they went back to anarchy, the old definition of anarchy, not the looting and the murder in the streets and the beating up and free for all type thing, but cooperation. Yes, self-rule, But the people, according to Steve, said actually it was the best of times. There was no government to interfere with everything you did, and people cooperated with one another. Someone's trying to fix their roof, as a person across the road says, oh, would you like to borrow my ladder? They found that it was easier to cooperate with one another and get things done than to fight. I mean, there might be a few petty thieving going on here and there, but ultimately people realise, particularly people in the West who've had some sort of law and order in the past, realise actually it is better to get on with one another than to try and not. It's just seemed to work. Well, he told me that after a while, of course, because no one was paying any taxes, they weren't paying money to a government because the government wasn't in operation at the time, and the government got a bit fed up with that and put in martial law, and of course it all went back to being a rather dystopian. I think in many ways we'd be better without the government messing up our lives. They don't seem to be doing very good for us, so I can see that there's a huge argument for that. However, however you do it, you do need some sort of rules, don't you? I mean, it seems at the moment the government is, as I say, working against us, penalising us for the most ridiculous things and extracting money at every opportunity. Well, that's got to stop. So look at the current legislation. I mean, if you were to print that off, right, the current legislation for this land, I mean, it would be voluminous. I mean, there would be so many books of it. And how is any member of the land, the men and women of this land, how are you supposed to know all of this? I mean, we have solicitors, don't we? We have great big libraries of all the rules and acts and statutes that have been passed, and they have to look them up. How a member of the society is supposed to understand what all these rules are, and they need to know what the rules are so that they don't break them and come a cropper. You couldn't possibly. So it's a nonsense, isn't it? I mean, it's bonkers, absolutely bonkers. So in a new system, you just want some very basic rules that people could understand. Use common sense, critical thinking, simple, do no harm. There's a rule. I mean, that encompasses so much. Do no harm. Okay, there we are. Look, that makes it very basic, but very easy to understand. Do no harm. If you nick somebody's property, you're doing harm. If you bash into them in your car, you're doing harm. It needs to be resolved. There needs to be a remedy, and a good remedy, a simple remedy. What about things like, you know, don't park your motor conveyance in a stupid place? And if you do, okay, somebody's got to work that out. Well, how do you say it's a stupid place? So why not just have a simple system in which you have your peers, perhaps 12 of your peers, decide. Ray parks his car across somebody's drive and goes off down the pub and has a drink. Bill can't get his car out because Ray's across that. And he says, wait, hang on, this is a bit unfair. I can't go to work. I can't get my mum to the hospital, whatever it is. And so Ray says, no, but there's no rules now. I can do whatever I damn well like. Well, that's not quite the idea that I'm saying. But what I'm saying is you'd go, right, okay, there's a dispute. So you get 12 of your peers and they say, well, who do you think's right? And the 12 listen to Bill's complaint. I can't get out, needed to get to work. And he's gone down to the pub for an hour and it's on the end of my drive. I can't get it out. Ray then comes forward and says, well, actually, you know, I just wanted to have a drink. There's no double yellow lines on there. I can't see that I was doing any harm. And the 12 people would and ah and say, well, actually, you know, in this case, it does seem like, Ray, you were a bit stupid. You could have parked it a bit. It's not as if you had no other choice. It wasn't an emergency. Ray, you did go down the pub. I think actually we're going to go against you. You need to now remedy this by offering Bill something, and perhaps between the two of you, you could work it out. And that could be a simple way of doing it. Now, of course, if it was something more dramatic and nastier, like murder and things like that, fraud, obviously you'd need to be a bit stricter, but the same principle would apply. We don't need, I don't think, to have to go to a profit-grabbing, robe-dressed authority whose allegiance isn't with the people at all. They've sworn an oath to some bar guild in which they are keeping that secret and trying to extract as much money out of you as possible. That's just a system that we don't need. It's not for the people, is it? So we need, according to me, a new order. We need to start now, and we need to unite together, because that's what we have in our favour. There's more of us than them, and we are the sovereign people who are in charge. We must, for some reason, we must remember this. I don't know why we've forgotten. We must turn our backs on those that wish to bully us and set up a better way. I think it can be done, and I think it has to be done. And sooner or later, if we don't do something and we don't get ourselves organised, we won't have any freedoms left to do it. And by goodness, why can't we just bite the metal and get on with this? It just seems so simple, doesn't it?